very good evening to everyone who's joined in. And I know a lot of participants are still joining, but we care about people who have joined as well. So, this is another way of interacting and probably spreading awareness where we have been doing series of webinar and recent confusion regarding the corporate tax registrations in UAE and news around 1st March being a deadline and clarifying such news. So we thought, why not simplify it for at least our network? And that's where we thought of doing this webinar. I would simply walk through to what who we are as a team and what we have done till now, just the basics, and then I would leave the floor for my colleagues Karishma and Kushal to take you through, at the nitty-gritties of what who needs to register, what has to be done, how does the portal looks like, what are the deadlines, for entities who are in UAE, for a POEM based entities, for PE based entities, for entities having nexus, all those nitty-gritties will be covered in this session. So yeah, this is our tax team growing very strong, and we have already delivered a lot of assignments, so we understand where we have all the nitty-gritties of corporate tax. So yeah, Karishma and Kushal are there with us today. Then heading over, obviously, we are a comprehensive financial service firm. So we have, from licensing to tax accounting compliances, audits, valuations, due diligence, and raising capital. That's the entire team that we have. We have been doing a lot of events and webinars throughout the journey where, we have been talking about the corporate tax law since April 2022, when the public consultation document came into existence. And now we are after that 2 years almost, where we understand that the law is still evolving. Every time we think that this is the final law, they come up with some other notification or cabinet decision or some clarification, helping us and probably confusing us a little. But 99% of the law is well settled now. Who has to register, to whom it is applicable, free zones or mainland, everything has been fairly very classified now. I think that's where our team has made even several videos. We've done sessions after sessions to spread awareness. And yeah, we bring to you one another session today. We've been, we've been writing a series of articles which have been captured by leading newspapers every week after week. We've been trying to simplify some of the provisions of the law, and we are proud that it happens every week. So what is going to be the part of today's session? Broadly, what we are going to cover is who is required to get corporate tax registration, what are the due dates of corporate tax registrations applicable to the entities or the group, some examples, so that we simplify it, and then obviously we'll be having a lot of questions, so we'll be happy to answer that. What if we do not register, what are the penalties around it, and what are the provisions around the late applications? So overall, this is what we're going to cover. But obviously, apart from that, how can you be ready as an organization? What are the documents that needs to be ready? How does the portal looks like? What are the nitty-gritties that needs to be known? A lot of people call us and tell us that, we have an in-house team and we would want them to do the corporate tax registration. We always feel that, yeah, that's one way of looking at it. And, the other way is obviously using, because it is new, using some of your advisors' help, and probably people like us where at least for the initial registration, that will help you overall. So that's it from a brief understanding of what's going to be the session today. I open the floor to Karishma and then Kushal to take you through the provisions. Feel free to write your questions if you have any. We have tried to actually simplify it in a way where examples have been kept. But if you still have a lot of questions or want to ask anything, feel free to use the Q&A box and the chat box to ask questions. So thank you so much, and over to you, Karishma.
Thank you so much, sir. Now, everyone has a question that who is required to do the registration. So to make it very simple in a very one language, I would say that it is mandatory for each and every business who has a license in the UAE to get registered for the corporate tax. Now, just to brief it out, if you are a resident person, and you are a juridical resident person who is incorporated in the UAE, including you are also in a free zone. So being a mainland entity or a free zone entity, you are required to do the registration for corporate tax. Secondly, if you are a foreign juridical person, if you are registered in foreign juridical person, but you are having the place of effective management in the UAE. Now, what would determine the place of effective management? There are various factors that would enable or determine that, okay, the place of effective management of your foreign entity is in the UAE. Then all those persons are also required to do the registration for corporate tax. And lastly, being a resident person, and if you are a natural person who is conducting any business or business activity, but the catch over here is that you are a natural person, but your revenue during the Gregorian calendar period, that is during the period of Jan to December, is less than 1 million, then and only then you are not required to do the registration. But apart from that, if you are a natural person and your revenue is exceeding 1 million, then you are required to do the registration, the corporate tax registration. Now, deadlines for each and every category, like being a juridical person who is incorporated in the UAE, or a foreign person who has place of effective management in UAE, and being a natural person, the due dates for all these three categories of a resident person is different, and that will be explained further in our presentation. Again, if there is a branch of a resident person, of course, that person is also required to do the registration. And lastly, if you are a foreign, if you are a non-resident person, and if you are having a permanent establishment in the UAE, or if you have a state sourced income, then also you are mandatorily required to do the registration. Now, just to give you a very quick example, like what may be considered when we say that you are having a state sourced income is if you are deriving any income, being a non-resident person and you're deriving any income from the UAE properties or from the UAE, then it will be considered as a state sourced income, being in the form of immovable property or doing business in the UAE, then those persons are required to do the registration. Just to give you a very simple example with respect to state sourced income or having a permanent establishment in the UAE, suppose say there is a company registered in USA and it is having an immovable property in UAE. The same company is having any rental income, the rental income from that immovable property in the UAE, that will be considered as a state sourced income, and XYZ company is required to do the corporate tax registration. Now, the moment instead of being a foreign company, being XYZ Limited, if it had been just say, for example, Mr. Shah Rukh Khan, who is owning an immovable property, say in Palm Jumeirah, and he is earning rental income out of that property, that person is not required to do the registration, as the non-resident person deriving income from immovable property will be considered as his personal investment income or as real estate income. So that person may not be required. But the moment it is being derived by a juridical person or a resident or incorporated company, then that person is required to do the registration. So this is just an overall idea about who all are required to do the registration under the corporate tax. Coming to the timeline with respect to registration, now as we all are aware that law came out in December 2022, stating that now every businesses and corporations who are into the UAE are required for this corporate tax. At that time, there was no clarity what will be the due date or what may be the timeline to do the registration. Then in Jan 23, there was a ministry decision which came out stating that the businesses who are liable for corporate tax may register at any time before filing their first corporate tax return. So accordingly, people started making it was very clear that if you're having a financial year, say Jan to December 24, and your filing period will be 30th September 25. So we have time till 30th September 25 to do the registration. This was the understanding based on that ministry decision. But a few days ago, on 22nd Feb, the FTA came with more clarity, and in that decision, they stated it very clearly that what will be the due dates for your corporate tax registration based on the criteria. Like if you're a resident person or a non-resident person or a natural person. So all these confusion which was there in the market, that was being cleared with this FTA decision, and that is the decision that that's the decision we will be explaining and clarifying about what are all the due dates for the registration purpose. So coming to the very first aspect about the corporate tax registration, that if you are a resident juridical person, if you are an LLC company, even if you are a sole establishment company, being a mainland entity or even being a free zone entity, and you are already in existence as on 1st March 2024. Say your company is already having an issued license, it's in existence since 2010, 2015, 2019, whatever may be the issuance date of your license. So based on the date of issuance of your license, the deadlines are being kept. Supposedly, if your trade license is issued in the month of Jan 2019, so for you, the license effective date or the issuance date as per the FTA decision is falling between 1st Jan to 31st January, irrespective of the year of issuance. It may be any year. So for those companies who are registered in the month of Jan in any prior years, for them, the deadline for registration is 31st May 2024. So the very first day which would come for registration for any entities who are registered is 31st May 2024. That's the earliest date for the companies who are in the UAE to get the registration done. Similarly, the date keeps every month it keeps on increasing, and the last due date which is coming for all the licenses is 31st December 2024. Like if you're having a license issued in the month of October and November, you have your due date up to 30th of November 2024. And lastly, if you are a person but you do not have license as on 1st March 2024, say like if it is in the process of you have already incorporated, you have certificate of incorporation, but you do not have any license, and for that purpose, you have 3 months from 1st March 2024 to get your company registered. So this is the due date for all the resident person who are already in existence as on 1st March 2024 to get the registration done. So accordingly, you can take a note based on this that if your license issuance date is falling into the specific category, what will be the due date for you. Now, just to simplify, just to give in a way of example, supposedly if you are a JAVSA entity and your issuance date is 19th April 2022, then issuance period for you is between 1st April to 30th April 2022, and hence the due date for you would be 30th June 2024 to get your company registered for the corporate tax. Now, this is just an example. There's in certain cases, there are cases where, on the trade license, there is a first issuance date and there is a current issuance date. So to avoid any confusion, in that cases, the first issuance date would be considered as your issuance date for the corporate tax registration purpose, and accordingly you can proceed with your registrations. Now coming to the another aspect where your company is not in existence, but you are planning to set up a company into the UAE in the upcoming year. Supposedly, if you want to get it done in the month of April or in the month of May, whatever it may be. So if you are a newly incorporated company after the effective date of this FTA decision, if you are the company which is registered in UAE, then you have 3 months from the date of your incorporation date to get registered under the corporate tax. Just for an example, if your company is ABC LLC and it is incorporated on 15th April 2024, then 3 months from that date, from the date of incorporation date, is your due date to get your company registered for CT. Now, in this another case where your company is not registered in UAE, it is outside UAE but developing a place of effective management in UAE, then for those companies who are having POEM in UAE, they have 3 months from the end of the financial year to get registered for corporate tax. Now, like for example, if there is a company XYZ Limited, which is incorporated in USA as on 15th April 2024, and they have been following the financial year Jan to December. So for them, the due date to get registered for corporate tax would be 3 months from the end of their financial year. That effectively comes as on 31st March 2025. So based on the jurisdiction being in UAE or outside UAE, these are the timelines for the newly incorporated company or who are planning to get their company incorporated after 1st March 2024. And then lastly, coming to the registration criteria for a non-resident person. Now, as I explained earlier as well, that if you're a non-resident person, either having a permanent establishment or nexus in the UAE, then you are required to do the registration. So first example, with the due date which are specified with respect to when you have a permanent establishment in the UAE, if your permanent establishment is being determined before 1st March 2024, that is before the date of issuance of this FTA decision, then you have 9 months from the permanent establishment existence to get your company registered for corporate tax. Suppose a permanent establishment was established, it was determined that you have a permanent establishment as on 9th Feb 2024, then you have 9 months ending from 9th Feb 2024, that is coming as 9th November, to get your company registered. And if the permanent establishment is determined after 1st March 2024, then the due date is 6 months from the permanent establishment existence. Again, as you can see in the example, that if XYZ Limited is having the permanent establishment is determined in UAE as on 17th April, that is after the issuance of this FTA decision, then you have 6 months from 17th April, that comes to 17th September 2024, to get your company registered. Now, with respect to nexus, what about the non-resident person who is having nexus in the UAE, if it is determined before this decision and if it is determined after this decision? In both the cases, it is 3 months from the date of determination of nexus into the UAE. As you can see in first example, as ABC Limited was already set up on 9th Feb 2024, so they have 3 months from that determination, that is 31st May 2024, to get their company registered. And in the second example, where XYZ Limited established its nexus establishment date into the UAE as on 9th May, for them the due date would be 3 months from that establishment, that comes to 9th August 2024. So these are all the due dates for a resident person and a non-resident person. Now I would like to hand over to Kushal to walk you through to the further part of the presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Karishma. Before diving into the due dates for natural person, I just want to explain that who are covered in natural persons. Natural persons includes human beings who are doing businesses, which also includes freelancers who are having doing businesses. It also includes sole establishment entities and sole proprietorships, which have unlimited liabilities. So the due dates are bifurcated between the residents and the non-residents differently. If you are a natural person and resident in UAE, then the due date for registration will be 30th of March 2025. For example, Mr. A is holding an entity which is named at ABC Sole Establishment and which is following financial year Jan to December. Then due date for that entity will be 31st of March 2025. Certain people may have questions that if Mr. A has two entities as a sole establishment and none of entities exceeding the threshold limit of AD 1 million. For example, Mr. A is he's owning two entities, ABC Sole Establishment and XYZ Sole Establishment. And ABC Sole Establishment have a revenue of 800,000 dirhams, and Mr. XYZ Sole Establishment has also same revenue. Then the limit of threshold limit for 1 million dirhams will be calculated for both entities, like for the ABC Sole Establishment and XYZ. Then Mr. A is required to register for the corporate tax. And there are also certain people who are doing businesses from outside UAE, but they are doing business in UAE. Like Mr. A, who is in India, but his business is being done in UAE. Then due date for these non-resident people will be the 3 months from the date in which they have exceeded the threshold limit of AED 1 million. For example, Mr. A, the revenue of Mr. A exceeded the limit of AED 1 million on 20th of December 2024. Then he have to register for the corporate tax within 3 months from that date, which is 20th of March 2025. And these all are the due dates for the natural persons or for judicial person. And so people may have doubt that if we don't apply for the corporate tax registrations within the due dates. So for that, if we don't apply for the corporate tax registration within due date, then we may have to pay penalty of 10,000 dirhams. This is specified by Cabinet Decision number 75 of 2023 and which is amended by Cabinet Resolution 10 of 2024. For example, if you are a taxable person who is required to register for the corporate tax and you hadn't made the application for the registration within the due dates which are mentioned above, then you may have to pay penalty of 10,000 dirhams without any limit or without any delay in the registrations. And people we have explained everything about who have to register with what are the dates in which we have to register what are the penalties for no registration within the due dates. But we are here explaining that how to register for the corporate tax. There is no separate portal for the corporate tax, as we are doing the same for VAT. There is the same portal, MR tax, in which we have to register for the corporate tax and file our returns. If you are currently having a VAT registration and you are having login credentials for the MR tax, then same login credentials will be used. But if you don't have any login credentials, then we have to create new one, and we have to proceed with in that portal with that new login credentials. This is the phase of MR tax portal in which we have to register for the corporate tax. And like if you guys can see, there is a registration type includes corporate tax. We just have to proceed for the with the action button and proceed for the corporate tax. We need certain documents, basic documents for the registration of the corporate tax, which are like submitted for the to the FTA, and FTA will take around 20 days to approve such documents and information. And after 20 days, FTA will approve our application, and we will get the corporate tax registration certificates. Explaining which type of documents we may need are we may need updated trade license of the businesses, and this updated trade license must be updated before start initiating the corporate tax registration, because without updating our corporate trade license, we will unable to initiate the corporate tax registration process. For who is managing our company, who is the manager of company, who is authorized signatory, we may need a memorandum of association or power of attorney, which is addressed in the name of manager. To know the establishment date or date of incorporation of company, we may need a certificate of incorporation. And if we have owners, shareholders or owners which are owning more than 25% of entity, then if those owners are natural persons, we need their Emirates ID if they are residents, or if they are non-residents, then we need their passport copies. And same Emirates ID and passport copies are needed for managers also. And what if the owner is a judicial person? Then we need trade licenses of that judicial person who is the owner. So these are like basic deadlines and the process for corporate tax registration. And we may conclude this when we can conclude this session, and we are opening the stage for Q&A session that you have.
Thank you so much, Kushal, and thank you so much, Karishma, for an informative session. There were a lot of questions, that were there in the chat box. Few of them I have answered, and I would just, for the benefit of everyone, just take that on record as well. There was a question where someone asked, Maheshji asked, that Media City freelancers or Media City free zone companies, do they also need to register for corporate tax? So absolutely, as already spoken with my colleagues as well, everyone has to register mandatorily for corporate tax. For freelancers, generally you'll have to see the limits. But for natural person, it is 1 million dirham. Apart from that, everyone has to register, no matter you're in a free zone, mainland, wherever you are, you have to 100% register. So another question from Amitji was, non-resident natural person also have to register and pay corporate tax. So any natural person doing business in this country will have to register for corporate tax, whether you've taken a license, not taken a license. It is something that is mandatory as per law. Apart from that, there is another question which says that the date of establishment is 19 Feb 2010 and issue date of the license is 13th November 2023, then what would be the due date of CT registration? So establishment and issue dates are two separate dates generally, but the law says the license issue date has to be considered. So when it says 13th November 2023, the applicable date is later. I think it is carried forward in one of the examples where, if you can run to the slides, I can quickly probably tell you that November 2023 will be covered in 30th November 2024. That's your deadline. But obviously, this is subject to seeing the license. If the license says, the license is issued in Feb 2010, then your date becomes 31st May 2024 and not 30th November. So this is subject to that. Then if certificate of incorporation is not available, then what document can be submitted for this segment? Unfortunately, certificate of incumbency or certificate of good standing. There would be some certificate to state, what the company has currently, and that's how you'll have to determine, your registration date. But more or less, to be on the safe side, you can consider 31st May at least as your date of registration. And if there are any assessments or probably impact studies going on in some of the groups, we would request you to consider at least 31st May as your deadline. And if not, if you have time because of your license in April and May, then you can wait till June and July and so forth. So Sunil Lakhani Karishma has a question which says, if an entity has already started deregistration process in Feb 2024, is it required to register? And if yes, how can they register since the license is expired? So technically, it's always a part of, if the license is expired, then there is no license as such on which corporate tax registration has been taken. So this is a very technical case in which you can avoid, but generally, even if the entity is working, right, for 2 months or 3 months of the year and the license is in existence, you will first have to take the registration, because if the business has been done or whatever, and then probably apply for deregistration. So that's the right way of doing it. But yeah, if the license is already expired, then this is a technical thing and you can avoid probably taking corporate tax registrations. How to register for CT without updating the existing KYC in VAT and Emarat portal? So I'm not clear with this question, but I think you will have to update the existing KYC first, and then only you can
Correct.
register for corporate tax. And Karishma and Kushal, if you can throw some light on this.
Sure, Kushal, if you want to answer, you can, not a problem.
So for corporate tax registration, we must update our KYC or other documents, because that will proceed for corporate tax also. So we must update our current, so that there should not be any problem in future. So we must
Even
update.
if you are applying, Mr. Amitji, who has asked this question, even if you're applying, the portal would first ask you to update the existing KYC and then submit the renewed or the updated licenses. Without that, they are not even proceeding for the registration part. So that is very much mandatory, and then you can take the registration.
Excellent. So Karishma, one technical question.
Yeah.
He has asked. So first of all, thank you, sir, for attending the session. And he's asked, an owner of a company is having golden visa, right?
Mhm.
And she is earning business income only 375,000 dirhams, but she has rental income above 1 million dirhams. So are they liable to take corporate tax registration on it?
So I would thank you, Mahendraji, for asking this question. We actually had a very specific session on this natural person taxation, where we had made it very clear in that we have explained that for calculating the turnover of a natural person, the only revenue that would be considered for this 1 million criteria would be the business income. So the personal investment income or the real estate income or the salary income, that would not be considered as their part of revenue, for which there would be the taxable part. So if this 375,000, as it is very clear, it is below 1 million dirham criteria or the threshold which is set for natural person, they are not required to get the registration done or even do the written filing. So I hope that clears the answer, Mr. Mahendraji.
Thank you so much. There is someone who's asked, are the rates for corporate tax notified? Yes, I think that has been done since a long, long time. It's 9%, but free zone entities have 0% benefits as well. So that's taken care of. Are representative offices of a foreign entity also required to register for corporate tax? So
Correct.
over to
So
you, Kushal, for this answer.
So if a foreign entity has a branch in UAE, then that branch will be considered as permanent establishment. And as explained by Karishma, that permanent establishment have to register for the corporate tax. So foreign branch of a foreign entity is compulsory
correct.
required to register for the corporate tax.
But if it is a rep office, representative office,
that also comes under the definition
This is
of a
not.
permanent establishment, and the only revenue that is being derived from the rep office would be taxable. It's not their entire income would be taxable. So rep office do falls under the definition of the permanent establishment.
excellent. Establishment with September to August accounting year. Please let me know the date where trade license date is May, which is the mandatory date. So if it is May, then it is 31st July 2024
Correct.
for the registration date. However, again, you'll have to see whether it is a renewable date or license issue date. So all of that is becomes very critical while filing or registering for corporate tax. A lot of people feel that, because my license date or establishment date was this, then my, if it is in November, but your renewal is in other months, then you need to check where to, because for where, to make it very clear, date of license issuance is, is important, not any other thing. So not year of issuance or renewals and
Correct.
will not matter. What will matter is when is the license issued. That month you have to take, and accordingly you will have to select your date. So that's how it works. And I saw few questions regarding non-residents. So can we just quickly touch upon the non-resident slide as well, Kushal and Karishma, because there are a lot of questions on non-residents. And then I'll get back to the Q&A because there are 20 odd more Q&As to be answered. But I thought, first we'll cover the non-resident. So non-resident person having P in UAE before March 24, it is 9 months. But if it is after, then it is 6 months. So again, if you ask me, what is the better date? Then probably we'll say 6 months from 29th Feb is the better date to register. But if the PE is before 1st March, so you're sure that, my PE was in January 2024, then you have time until October to register. But always a good practice to register prior. So that I hope the non-resident answer, this slide answers the non-resident thing. Does the manager need to be listed for the corporate tax submissions, or can just be a non-resident owner, or can it just be the non-resident owner of the company? So we're listed for corporate tax as in, I don't know, what do you mean by this question? But if you're asking that we have to fill in the details, I think it is of the owners and the shareholders details that goes on, and not the manager. So probably that, I hope, answers the question. Again, Mahesh ji has asked, whether do you need to register even if the revenue is not 1 million? So if it is natural person and business income is less than 1 million, then no corporate tax registration. However, any other entity and even natural person having income over or revenue over 1 million, you have to mandatory register. You're in free zone, you're in offshore, you're in UAE mainland, anywhere you'll have to 100% register for corporate tax. And I think even for foreign entities now the registration has started.
Okay.
Everyone is required to register. If the company is having a branch within the UAE, whether two different registrations are required. So absolutely not. But yeah, Karishma, if you want to take that, this is from Bhanu.
Sure. So for the branch, for registering the branch, the branch has to register under the parent entity or the holding company, whosoever it is. Under that, there is the option that if you have a branch, all the branches can register under the same. So there is no requirement to do the separate registration or either do separate filing for it. However, if it is a branch of a foreign company, then they need to take the separate registration. But branch of the UAE entity itself is not required to take the separate registration. So I hope that clarifies, Bhanu.
Thank you. Interesting question from Marathi, and because we've done a registration, so that's a question: is fully owned subsidiary of Indian company in free zone? Is any document of parent company required while doing the registration? So over to you, Kushal and Karish.
So for the entity who is having a subsidiary or who is a subsidiary of an Indian company, the documents, of course, when it comes to a foreign entity, the documents would be different. There needs to be a kind of a certificate of incumbency or a certificate of incorporation of that specific country, which can be hold good and submitted as a supportive document for those all the entities, even when if it is a branch or even if it's a parent or holding subsidiary relations, as you mentioned. So those documents would suffice for stating the existence of the parent company in Indian entity.
Incorporation documents of the parent entities at least is required.
Correct.
So that yes,
And shareholding certificate of the UA entity can also be.
That anyways will have to submit. So for Indian entity, the supportive document would be the existence or the incorporation certificate of that country.
So from Snehal, foreign company having POEM in UAE and existing before 1st June 2023, financial year Jan December, what will be the due date? So let's go to the POEM slide again. Let's help to answer that. See, if you have a place of effective management in UAE, then you need to make sure that your registration is done within 3 months, right? And because it is existing before 1st March 2024, you'll have to
Correct.
make sure that the registration is done. So when you say that it is 1st June 2023, your deadline is 31st May 2024, and you'll have to register within that deadline. So,
Correct.
and always a good practice to register, early, because you never know, right? Slight understanding errors can cause penalties, and now we know that it is 10,000 dirhams. So that's the penalty. But I hope that answers the question. For registration of XYZ LLC, in case of ABC has 100% shareholding in XYZ, whether Emirates ID passport will be required for owners of ABC LLC also. So, sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Karishma.
Yeah, so I was just saying that whenever there is the shareholding done by any legal person or any juridical person, the trade license or the certificate of incorporation of that would suffice. There is no other requirement to submit the Emirates ID or passport of the owners of that holding entity as well. It would come only in the case Emirates ID when the direct owners are the natural persons for those entities.
Excellent. I hope that answers Bhanu. And I think I'll take few more questions because few are repetitive. I'll leave that. If the single company owner and for visa purpose they make contract for only 5,000 and the currently salary is 15,000, how much actual deductible? I don't know. I mean, this I am not sure of the question, so I'll park this. Uh, because this is regarding some salary and how much is deductible. But generally, whatever you have in the contracts, that's going to be considered, because whatever you draw is just not right. It has to be contractually or documentary proved that you are earning that much. So yeah, if I have a company in Saudi and the ultimate beneficiary is the company in UAE, then the income from Saudi will be double taxed. So ultimately, see, there is a double tax avoidance agreement which can come into picture, and you may get the benefit. So it depends on what transactions are we talking about, what will be the rates. If it is more than 9%, then the credits can be utilized. So all of that consideration will come into picture once we have clarity. But yeah, it will not be double taxed. You will get the foreign tax credits accordingly. I hope that answers. Uh, Excellent. If a juridical person, mainland company, has a branch office in free zone, so which license would be used to conclude the registration? This is from Sazad Khuram. So if it is a mainland company having a branch in free zone, which license has to be considered for registering for corporate tax? It will be the mainland company that will be considered for registering at per the corporate tax, and you will have to use that entity. Kushal and Karishma, if you can add, if you want to add anything else.
No, I think that's the case. If it's a mainland company, that would be only considered as your primary license, and based on that, you'll have to do your registration.
So Arjun Popal has asked a question which says we are registered and have a branch of a foreign company since 2008 in Sharjah Airport Free Zone, and the owner in UAE trade license is a company in Australia. We don't have a bank account in UAE. We have an exemption status from filing VAT. Do we need to register for corporate tax? So unfortunately, Arjun, as I've mentioned, and I will again repeat, you will have to register for corporate tax irrelevant, because for corporate tax, every entity that is here has to register, except natural person, 1 million dirhams of turnover, and that also business. So yeah, for non-resident PE existing prior to it now, will the deadline be 9 months? No, no, no. So again, for non-residents PE existing prior to 2023, again, I'll come to the PE slide if we can walk through that. Karishma, if you can briefly
Yes.
touch upon this.
So as you can see, I'm not sure who has asked this question, but as you can see, if the permanent establishment is determined, prior to that existence, so we have 9 months from 1st June 2023. Probably that might be one of the case, or the other criteria for your registration would be the one which is on the first slide, where we do not have any license and we have 3 months from that date. So that would be earliest, that is 31st May 2024, to get your company registered. So I hope this clarifies whosoever had that question, as it was an anonymous attendee.
Yeah. So three companies having same owners, does, do they need to register for each company separately? Again, it depends if you have formed a tax group, not formed a tax group, but you have to register separately for all the entities, and you will have to make sure that registration of all the entities are done, and then a tax group. If you're forming a tax group, then a tax group registration also has to be done. So it depends on that, but yeah, even as same owners, you will have to have registrations until and unless you combine those businesses into one license. So I hope that answers. Uh, Hi, if we have a sole proprietary concern in mainland and we are in process of converting into LLC, do we still need to register for corporation for sole proprietary entity? So it depends, again, for the business that you've done, the status of the license today, it'll depend on that, but largely it will be for the converted entity, which is LLC. So yeah, that I hope that helps. But Rajshri, if the business volume is huge, you will have to still register till the license is active and then deregister and convert it into an LLC. So that formalities have to be done. So I hope that answers. Uh, can we take any other questions? POEM we've covered. Yeah, I think largely we've covered everything that's there. From Sherlin, there's one more question. If Zavda offshore company owns a property in UAE and rented, and the shareholder of this company is an offshore company, Seychelles, does it need to register CT for both the companies in UAE? So very interesting, Sherlin. I'll just cover this briefly. Zavda offshore company 100% has to register, but if the Seychelles entities has been managed and controlled from
Correct.
UAE, then again you will have to register. So it depends where the POEM of that entity comes into picture, and if it is again, you'll have to see what is the business in the Seychelles entities. It's just a holdco or there is regular day-to-day operation. So there are a lot of factors to it, but definitely Zavda offshore company has to register for UAE corporate tax. I hope that answers. Yeah. So yeah, if a foreign company with two UAE branches need to register separately. So again, I think, number of branches, number of companies doesn't matter. If there is a separate entity and there is a separate license, you will
License.
have to register until and unless it is a UAE company's own branch, right? So if it is a foreign entity, branches, 2, 3, 4, whatever, you'll have to register separately. So I hope that answers. So VAT is registered as a group and only one VAT TRN number. Do we have to register companies separately as the Emirate tax site allows registration from the login of VAT? So VAT is a different law. Corporate tax is a different law. For corporate tax, after you'll have to register separately. VAT gives you the benefit of doing one group registration, but we have seen a lot of challenges when there is only one group registration. Say, suppose you go for deregistrations tomorrow, the entities below sometimes face a lot of time, getting the deregistrations done. So even in VAT, we take an opinion that you register individually and then have a group registration. And for corporate tax, definitely you'll have to register each entity. And then if you're making a group, you'll have to form that group. So I hope that answers the question. Again, POEM before March 1st, 2024, 3 months, 31st May 2024. Let me be very clear. I think that's your deadline. I hope this helps. Hero, sorry, I came in a little late. I might have missed the answer for this question. Our company is in DSO free zone. Owner is an entity in Germany. I have been trying to register in corporate tax since last year, but I'm under owner details. There is no other option or anything closure under licensing authority of the German company. It only shows all in UAE and some in China. I've raised this to FTA. I keep getting this reply from them in regards to your email. So I don't know who has this challenge, but we have done registrations for free zones who have foreign entities, so we'll be more than happy to check what is going on. You can reach out to Karishma, Kushal, or any one of us, and we'll be happy to guide you and assist you in this registration for sure. But and because you were trying last year, portal wasn't ready, but currently if you
Correct.
go register again, probably you will get a lot of ease because the portal is much more evolved right now. So yeah, I think Dominic has a question, and that should be the last question because I don't see any other question currently. But yeah, if the parent company is outside UAE and the subsidiaries are in UAE, can we have a group registration? So group registration of parent and subsidiary is only possible if the parent entity is managed and controlled from UAE. Again, the
Correct.
place of effective management will be very important for the parent entity. If it is outside UAE, then you cannot form a group. It has to be a separate registration for the subsidiary. I hope Dominic, that clears your question, and yeah, that answers majority of the questions that were there. I once again thank everyone who's been attending the sessions and been patient enough to be here. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us, uh, and we'll be more than happy to answer all your questions and queries. We would love to be the agent of change this country has been seeing when it comes to UAE corporate tax and the compliances. So thank you so much once again, and keep watching out for series of webinars that we keep coming, and the next one is soon coming, probably and keep supporting. Thank you so much, and have a great weekend.
Thank you,
Thank you so
everyone.
much, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.